Spellcaster mages are not allowed to use magic wands. Give them a little time to prepare. Now, enhancement mages. Release your incantations, and spellcaster mages. Absorb the incantations you just developed back into your hands. 6 of them are bewildered, huh? However, they still have to. Altho observed each person approaching the princess. Oh, it seems she's done it, he noted. 2 of those 6 guys seem quite clueless, missing the absorption of their own prepared incantation and displaying it like this. What significance does it hold, really? True, we all know that only high-level enhancement sages can extend their incantations to such a range. But upon hearing this, Altho immediately demonstrated. However, some questioned the meaning of his recent performance. Most enhancement sages can do that much by the stage of Camphor Core, they argued. It's not that difficult. But I think you've never seen an enhancement sage do what I just did at the Camphor Core stage. Altho responded. I can't accurately prove what will happen when spellcrafters can absorb the incantations they conceive. But believe me, that method only benefits you. Sitting down, he said, now, whoever wants to test their skills, come down here. Den dine asterisk. The bell signaling the end of class rang. People dispersed, discussing. Did he use an item or something? How did he manage that? Earlier, I almost did it too, someone added. After the first teaching session ended, Altho asked Sylvie, how did it seem when I was up there? You were asleep earlier. Taking a break on a roadside bench. He felt that being a teacher was good, and he could end the class anytime. Meanwhile, Sylvie was preoccupied chasing a butterfly that ended up falling to the ground, unsuccessful. The princess approached, asking if anyone was sitting there. Yep, someone's here. Altho pointed down beneath the bench. I was just kidding. She sat down as if genuinely tired. Altho couldn't fathom what was on her mind, murmuring, the class just now was really great. Altho politely replied, thanking her. You just wanted to say that, right? She turned to call Altho over, saying, I've wanted to tell you this for a long time. Perplexed, he asked hesitantly, isn't the princess about to confess to me? Finally, he succumbed to the unique and formidable character of his own making. I'll become the cause of a feud between 2 noble families. But not as you think, she reassured him. On behalf of my family, I sincerely apologize to you. I hope you forgive me for the disasters at the auction building and my father's conduct. She raised her head, noticing Altho visibly shaken, and gently squeezed his cheeks. What are you doing? He replied with a self-deprecating gesture. I never expected him to notice what happened more than 4 years ago. So she said, respecting her father. But that day, I was really disappointed in him. Even if that's the case, she doesn't have to apologize on their behalf, Altho added. I just thought we should because we're friends, you know. That's how our relationship is, she said. Why did my brother say only friends would touch each other? Listening to that, Altho recalled how she had guided him into the classroom earlier and replied, Is that so? She felt strange. I matured amidst the hatred of my lineage, the power of magic, and even my appearance. All because it deprived me of the freedom I desired. I'll become the cause of an internal conflict between 2 races. Yet, a talented young man, recruited by many, constantly scrutinized, can still be cheerful and bright like you, Altho. He chuckled. Did I just mishear that? The 1,000-year-old ice princess is laughing. She turned away. Anyway, your class today was quite interesting. Why did those 2 elemental spells differ in execution like that? Could it be you came to me because of that? Altho pondered. So it turns out, from earlier until now, this has been your true purpose? He continued. No, that's not it. That's not my purpose at all. I just changed the subject to avoid. Altho interrupted calmly as he stood up. Come on, princess. I was just joking. But now, I'm favoring the smartest student, so the class is unfair to others, he added as he walked away. Watching his retreating figure, the princess couldn't help but smile. In Professor Gideon's class, the green-haired girl heard about Altho being injured during the first lesson and asked if he was okay. I'm almost fully recovered, he replied. Curious about what happened, she was suddenly hit on the head with a chalk piece thrown by the professor, who told her, Enlighten my class by identifying the main components of a basic illuminating creation. Confidently, she stood up and answered, A basic illuminating creation is made from fluorescent crystals, a material abundant near the outskirts of Sepin and the Dwarf Kingdom. After refinement, Fluorescent continuously emits a faint light. Therefore, to control the end product of Professor's task. That's enough, the professor interrupted. I only asked for the material used in this creation. As the class ended, Altho complained. That old stubborn geezer gave us an assignment even before class began. I already have a few of those illuminating creations lying around, just for fun. If you like, take one. You've missed a few classes anyway. Altho asked cheerfully, Really? Oh, well, I haven't used those at all. Just toss them around in my dorm. You truly are my savior, Selvi. Salvi, my dear father, should really do your own homework, she retorted, clearly exasperated. The four-eyed friend ran up to Altho and exclaimed, Hey, there you are. Principal Goodsky wants to meet you. Altho happily introduced Eliza, saying, This is Eliugia. Eliugia and Eliza shook hands warmly, exchanging greetings. Nice to meet you, they both said. Although thought to himself, they do look somewhat alike. Oh, right, he acknowledged. Principal Goodsky has called you to the training room. I see. Well, let's get acquainted then. See you later, Altho replied, heading towards the training room as instructed by Principal Goodsky. Upon opening the door, he found Princess Tessia sitting there. Altho greeted her cheerfully. Selvi, upon seeing her, joyfully leaped into her arms, exclaiming, Mom. Hello, Sylvie. Altho greeted. Where's Principal Goodsky? She said something urgent came up and she just left, Tessia explained. Altho frowned, wondering whether it was truly urgent or intentionally arranged. He agreed. I guess we should get started then. Harmonizing with any monster requires a lot of effort, and most summoners can't do it alone. Sometimes, they need the assistance of another mage with elemental pressures similar to the creature they're harmonizing with. I am the quadruple element mage, capable of balancing 4 elemental pressures. This not only helps Tessia harmonize with her creature's will, but also enhances her physical constitution, aiding her in battling the deep forest guardians trying to steal her mana core. Perhaps we should stop here for today, Altho concluded. Thank you so much. They glanced at Tobis and Sylvie, then resumed their conversation. Hey, Altho, Tessia asked hesitantly, are you mad at me for kissing you? Mad? No, I just was surprised, Altho replied awkwardly. How could I be mad? Then why have you been avoiding me since then? Tessia pressed, causing Altho to scratch his head. Well, Tessia, we're still young, and besides, I've known you since you were little. Altho reasoned. I understand that a girl your age might consider marriage, especially since you're of royal descent, but my conditions aren't as good as yours. She retorted, You're just making excuses. Both of us know I never meant for us to marry like that, he admitted. I know it was wrong of me to do so, but I just wanted to have a more progressive conversation. He smiled and said, That's right. From 8 years ago until now, we've made a lot of progress. Yeah, she replied. You're no longer the damp princess you used to be. Enough. I don't expect to hear any answers from you, he told her. But at least I want you to take this more seriously. Sorry for expecting too much, she said reluctantly. Seeing Tessia walk away, Altho called out, Hey, Tessia, wait. She stopped abruptly, visibly irritated, then turned back to him. You know, Altho, you always feel so confident about many things. Magic combat, strategies, and all, she began, tightening her grip on her dress. You're confident in those aspects because they're your strengths. But do you know something? There are plenty of things you're not good at. You think no one around you notices, because you always wear a mask of cheerfulness, unaffected by anything. Even now, your reaction is to downplay my feelings for you, maybe even tease me. She gestured with her hands, grasping her skirt firmly. Aren't you the immature one here? Just like when you turned down Lilia. Altho froze, his face reddening. How did she know about that? Did Lilia tell her? He clenched his fists and grabbed some grass from the ground. And what do you expect me to do now? Tessia, he sighed. I can't just reveal who I was in a past life or how old I really am to you. Afterwards, he went to train with Tobis, but Tessia's words lingered in his mind. You know, although you're so confident about magic combat and intelligence, you're proud of those because you're good at them. But do you know something? There are things you're not good at. Do you think people don't see through your mask? She continued. Even now, your reaction is to try and ease my emotions, maybe even tease me. In other words, aren't you the one who's not mature? These words echoed in his mind as he trained, but they didn't distract him. His mana reserves were low, and he collapsed from exhaustion. Sylvie worriedly approached him and comforted him, leaning closer to her father. "Don't push yourself too hard, Dad. You're still recovering." Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Alvo got up to answer it, finding his advanced class professor. She waved and said, "It's me. I've come to check on you, as both you and Princess Tessia missed class today. I wanted to make sure nothing happened here." Althoff stepped out and closed the door behind him. "I've been training here for a while. It's just that." "But Tessia isn't here with you, is she?" the professor interjected. "Oh, sorry, I must have misunderstood," Alval responded, shoulders slumping. She draped an arm over his shoulder and said, "You've missed my class and another. At the very least, you should make it to the last class, right?" You look towards the room and say, "That's fine." Althal, "Good boy. A private training room is already sufficient. But why is it so spacious? And what kind of training turns a reinforced mana room into this?" The more I observe this child, the more mysterious he seems. When you arrived for the final class, they were discussing you again. "Look, the first year finally made it to class. Huh, let him off easy. I hear he's pretty badly injured." Alvo looks at Sylvie and pinches her cheek. "Why do you sleep so much?" "We're training here. How lucky. I wish I could just sleep and still grow stronger." Alvo chuckles. "Yes, indeed. Finally, our class has you attending. Surly Queen, we heard that you've returned after recovering from your injury. Are you feeling better?" "Yes, sir, and I apologize for missing so many of your classes," she says respectfully. "That's all right, my good student. If so, could you share with the class what you know about the formation process of spells?" "From what I know, the formation of spells involves either succession or alteration of basic spells, and the skill to create a different effect." She answers confidently. "That's a very clear answer. Well done, Lemon. Now, I've spent most of last week examining the aspects one needs to know before studying the foundations of spell formation. Lemon's sophisticated answer has provided us with a very solid foundation to start with. I want everyone to imagine a world where everyone can read each other's minds. Not a particularly cheerful world, right? But let's try walking in this imaginary world, where passing thoughts can uncover those who are cunning yet pure-hearted, or those who are extremely cruel but appear kind. They are laid bare and read by others. I believe that such a world is the perfect breeding ground for the most talented wizards. Sylvie silently thinks that this is why both her child and father are the best wizards. I'll come back to this issue later, but for now, allow me to ask a question. Why do some spellcasters and spell enhancers chant spells, while others do not? I think it's because if someone is skilled in a spell, they don't need to chant it to a certain extent. However, saying they're good at something is a bit vague, isn't it? We chant spells to fill our consciousness with exact suggestions, shaping mana into a spell. An illustrative example of this matter. If I tell a woman who hates me that I still love her, she will certainly react accordingly. Listening to that, Aldo recalled the image from earlier, when Princess Tessia snapped at him. The phrase in this case for him was, "I still love you," triggering her reaction. Or more precisely, it could manifest as her gossiping about how disgusting it is, kicking a stone into his foot, or even throwing something at him. Everyone below laughed cheerfully, as he really knew how to hold the attention of the students, just like our thoughts affect our spells. When we achieve a high level of focus and imagination, we can shorten the incantation or even do without it altogether. So if there were a world where everyone could read each other's minds, that world would surely harbor the most skilled wizards. Why, you ask? Because they would have the ability to completely control their thoughts with the concepts just provided for tricks. Flip to page 23 to see a few differences between spell enhancers and wizards on this matter. Altho grumbled to himself, "It's useless to go to school, when all I can think about is Tessia. I never thought her words would bother me this much. Mother was right. Whose side am I on? Besides, many people hate me for being a daredevil. But I don't care about that, because Dad really cares about Mom. And Sylvie, when did she start looking like a happy fool without knowing her shortcomings? While I'm deeply concerned. You know, despite being a bit distracted, I at least pretend to fake it to avoid being too obvious. Right, Lucas? We just want you to make sure the dormitory is safe. Even here at the academy, it's very dangerous. Right. Dangerous because you might drop your pants like you did," he shouted angrily. Do you dare tease me just because of you? Lucas pulled him back and pushed him out. Hey, enough nonsense. Lucas stepped forward. Do you think I'll forget about you running away during the match if you pretend to steal and avoid me? How do you think you can do it? Altho calmly replied. There's a hole in the ground, I ask you. How did you escape from my spell prison, then appear right next to the training ground? And you even managed to support Princess Tessia, all within half a second. Altho gripped Lucas's hand, pointing it towards himself, and continued, Firstly, this isn't how you ask someone. Secondly, why shouldn't I answer you? I know you used equipment, right? How does a commoner like you have it? Could it be that the cunning fairy helped you? How did you trick Princess Serlin into thinking that? Although felt he had been wronged somewhat. The chubby guy shouted loudly, He's too sneaky. You probably used tricks to lead Princess Serlin, haven't you? What are you pretending to be stupid for? Even though you're a little handsome, you're still just a dirty commoner. Hey, you're letting your mana overflow. Shut up and let him know his place. Are you dumb? Lucas interrupted. We're going to get into trouble because of you. Ignoring him, although retorted, the princess deserves someone better than you. She deserves someone of pure noble blood like me. See, I'm not attracted to anyone, but you don't get to decide if Serlin deserves anyone. Furious, the chubby guy yelled back. She thinks the same way too. I know she even picked up a handkerchief for me. Lucas laughed and said, That chubby guy's gone mad. He's huffing a handkerchief and saying all that. She said I'm the chosen one. Something's wrong with him. His mana levels aren't quite right. But it's not you, so it's better for you to die. He shouted angrily, rushing to attack Altho. Surprised, Sylvie angrily said, Wait, Altho, and quickly avoided him. Do you know that you're attacking a member of the disciplinary committee? The other guy said to Lucas. I think we should stop him. Lucas responded. What do you mean? Altho asked. I haven't done anything. In fact, we're also very afraid of everything. Then he laughed disdainfully, saying to Altho, Do you really want me to believe that? He casually raised his hands and said, Look, there's nothing here. No weapons or magic. So how does Markwood look? He asked. Don't you worry. He's not right. Aren't you going to lose in the combat class next week? Who cares? Either he'll injure himself here, or the disciplinary staff will expel him from school. After saying that, he turned and walked away, telling Altho not to leave him injured. I don't want you to run away. I'll see you in the next fight. The chubby guy kept shouting, Die, and then attacked Altho fiercely. He was stronger than Lucas, and had more mana, which he was using extremely aggressively. If I wanted to catch him without killing him, I might have to remove the seal. But his contracted animal was back in dragon form, then back in a white fox shape. Immediately, Altho, head of the disciplinary committee, hurried over. I've been training nearby recently and felt a big mana surge. I don't know what happened. He suddenly started bursting with that mana and went crazy, then attacked me. She pulled his shirt up and saw a red text line written along his spine. Damn it, again. Oh, then 2 people took him to the hospital, and when they left, Altho asked if there were more cases like this at the academy. It only happened when you were recovering in the medical area, she said. Do you know what happened to him? He's showing an unusual mana, and those blood characters on his back. I'll tell you more at the next disciplinary committee meeting. Anyway, we need to inform Principal Goodsky about everything you saw when you caught him. Someone knocked on the door. Altho walked in and was surprised to see Lucas's older brother here. They were excited. They were Lance Byrons and Lance Olex. Side by side, Principal Goodsky introduced them. These 2 students are members of the disciplinary committee and the most promising magicians of their age. I'm very glad to meet you, dear lady. My dream is to become Lance. As I said, let's take appropriate action as soon as possible, Byron said. They left. As they passed Byrons, Altho glanced at each other. Lance told the girl, I'll wait for you and make her feel happy. Sylvie said, Call Dad. I know they're strong. Now my secretary has mentioned the urgent matter just occurred. 2 people sat down to tell me. Altho said yes, but what happened there? 2 of the strongest magicians, Dickon, can't just pass by and say hello, can they? Oh, it's not just about the kids being worried right now. Lance Byrons used to be a student here, and his younger brother is still studying here, so he came by to give that notice. The girl was surprised. Wow, I never thought I'd meet them in real life. I hope they bring good news. But enough of that. Tell me what happened. Although thought from Lucas, Manhwa following and interrogating me after class to everything after that, generally focusing on Manhwa's strange behavior and that unusual mana surge, along with his abnormal magical abilities. The principal asked, and the granddaughter said there were signs of blood carved along his spine. Understand, although realized she knew something. As Claire said, he's not the first case, nor will he be the last. Although asked, do you know what happened to Manhwa? Unfortunately, both pharmacists and inventors didn't know exactly what it was. We sought the support of the wizard associations and invited researchers to cooperate with Gideon and a few of our staff on this matter. So hopefully we'll find answers soon. Although we'll continue to have disciplinary committee members patrol the classrooms. I'll also assign additional support staff at night. Yes, I understand. It's fortunate I came back. The disciplinary committee members really need help. After seeing the two off, she closed the door and pondered her contract animal. Should I involve those students in this matter? No, if they really are. In the worst case, sacrifice may be necessary. I've gone too far. Why did they start acting so soon? After meeting Principal Goodsky, they returned to the dormitory. It's late. Go to sleep, she said. You too. See you at the disciplinary committee meeting tomorrow morning. Suddenly, Altho saw Byron's talking to Lucas. He hid behind the wall and eavesdropped. Even that arrogant guy had to bow his head before his older brother. Perhaps Claire was right. Everything would be meaningless unless he was strong enough to kill Lucas's stepbrother. Otherwise, he couldn't do anything to Lucas, because he had someone backing him up. At least, he hadn't done anything yet. Suddenly, a sword was pressed against his neck. It was Alex. She said his hostility was directed towards Lance. That's quite strong, she remarked. One of the disadvantages of storing weapons in these spaces is that it takes too long to pull them out. Although calmly replied, I think you misunderstand. I have no hostility towards Lance Byrons. Today was the first time I met him. Though he tried to suppress his presence, I still recognized him. Of course, even if he is an elemental mage, he couldn't do anything to him. How strong is he? Byrons? They peeked out and continued their conversation. How did he become so strong? She waved her hand in jest. It's about this strange and creepy humor. At least pretend to laugh, she said. I'm the most loving of all Lances, so there's quite a distance between us. Although patted her on the shoulder and comforted her. But why does she feel offended? Byron's is one of the strongest people, but that's the case. He couldn't match my intuition, so that's why she felt it was her, even before I realized her. It seems that Byron's has finished talking to the kid. I'm glad to see you again, Alpho. She bowed her head and thanked him for answering an ordinary student like her. Lance LX, if my brother were still here, he might be your age. She stroked his hair, saying, thank you so much for that. Close Chapter 6 with Manhwa's mysterious case. Chapter 7 opens up to a myriad of mysteries, curiosity about Altho in particular, and all the students in Exurus and Taxurus. In general, in the morning, everyone was rumored to have spread news quickly. You know the story last night. A second-year-old went crazy and then attacked another student. Understand it. From what I've heard, it seems to be Manhwa. Can't that pig from the royal family? Although seem to see rumors spreading about so many people. The human story is so much the father asks, or that. It seems that the members seemed a bit shaken. Although just opened the door. It feels like there's something wrong. Did you ask what happened? The captain replied that it was Manhwa. He died last night. Although, are you surprised? Why did he die? The creators and medical staff couldn't prevent Manhwa's mana from leaking out. Mana leaking. He was unconscious. Yet mana still leaked out. This must be closely related to the bloody characters along his spine. Did they find out anything? A bit, but they didn't reveal it. Even now, his parents refused to provide any information. One of the disciplinary committee members angrily slammed his hand on the table. What is the point of this disciplinary committee if they keep hoarding important information and not telling us anything? The disciplinary committee wants to quickly investigate and close the case as soon as possible to prevent any more students from suffering. But besides knowing Manhwa was affected like that, they had no other information. Let's put that issue aside for now. Now that Allo is here, let's assign and strengthen the patrol schedules of the team. The meeting is adjourned. They left with different schedules and task assignments. Are you okay with patrolling at night with Theodo like that? The start for both of you wasn't good, Faye said. It's not that I don't care, Aldo replied. The schedule is fine. It's better for me because I am teaching upper and lower class students. I'm just surprised that we have to patrol so late. Hey, I'm pretty surprised to find out these daggers are communication devices. Me too. I thought they were just decorative. I was even more surprised that Kai volunteered to patrol alone in such a large campus area. Can he manage patrolling alone? Are you really surprised? Because your face doesn't show any expression of surprise. I always see just one expression on your face, Faye said. I heard Kai is famous for avoiding work, right? Why did he volunteer for patrol this time? Aldo yawned. Maybe he is tired of patrolling with Dian. But it's a pity we don't get to patrol together. Why did your brother treat me so harshly? I only told him that after we had a bit of physical contact, you became my friend. Both guys were surprised and turned around. Ah, no wonder, Aldo said. See you in class, my excellent students. The class began. Aldo asked, so has anyone thought about the question I posed yesterday? Can the color of a mana core that a mage possesses truly measure their rank or not? I think the mana core is a great way to measure a mage's power level. The color of the core not only correlates with the effort and time the mage has spent training, Faye answered. I knew it, another member of the disciplinary committee said. He definitely gave Faye the answer already. It also clearly shows potential. As soon as Faye finished his answer, Aldo said, wrong. His statement silenced all discussions and doubts among the students. Aldo explained, using the mana core as a measure like that undermines the importance of all the other factors that make a mage. The color of a mage's mana core cannot represent their intellect, reaction speed, combat awareness, understanding of spells, and so on. It's like judging a warrior's fighting ability solely based on their muscle size. We can be sure that he is strong, but we cannot say he fights better than someone with less muscle mass. A short student stood up and asked, so what criteria can accurately assess the magical abilities of an opponent? Aldo smiled and said, simple, don't judge. Think about it. Even if sensing the level of a mana core could actually help everyone gauge another person's combat strength, what would you do if their strength is lower than yours? Would you go easy on them, or would you mock and ridicule them, showing off your own superior abilities? When forced to fight, assuming you are weaker than the mage you are facing will only make you more vigilant and cautious. But as I said earlier, that's enough. Let's review what we did yesterday. I hope you all practiced sufficiently before coming to my class. And with that, the lesson ended. Aldo and Sylvie were rushing. Why didn't you wake me up when the time was up? Because I was also sleeping. When they arrived, they found the note already placed there. I'm definitely going to make Tobis smash you into pieces. Love, though. I'm sorry for being late, Professor. I'll go change right away. Oh no, you won't. I won't risk you going out until you've fully recovered. Go sit in the stands. Well, at least I don't have to worry about Lucas provoking me to fight anymore, Sylvie thought, relieved. Sylvie was happy. Mom, she exclaimed, hugging her mother tightly, but when she saw Aldo, the smile faded from her face, and her expression turned cold. Aldo was about to speak, but Princess Tessia interrupted him. There's no need to explain, although, at that time, I was too angry and said things I wish I hadn't. But what you said to me was partly true. In some way, I think I know how you feel about me, but I kept avoiding it because I was afraid to face it. Emotions are scarier than magic or fighting. Just practicing won't help me improve. I feel the same way, Aldo said. I let my emotions cloud my judgment and brought up Lilia, even though she told me not to tell anyone. No, you're much better than I am. I've always avoided you, and you didn't deserve that. I'm sorry, but I can't have that kind of relationship with you right now. Hearing this, the princess looked deeply saddened. At least for now, she added. Now? Yes, maybe when we're older. And you think I'll just wait for you? She asked. That's not what I mean. I know you're very popular, and honestly, I don't know how long it will take for me to be ready. Hearing this, she smiled brightly. Good, I'm glad you understand. Both of them fell silent for a moment. Then she touched Aldo's face with her index finger. Can I trust you? You won't go flirting and dating others after saying this, right? Aldo raised both hands in an X sign, shaking his head. That's definitely not going to happen. She sighed and said, maybe this is all we can do for now. I don't need to make you wait for me. but I hope you will." Then she kissed his forehead. That action left, although in a daze. Sylvie teased, "Hey, someone just kissed Mom." Embarrassed, he slumped down onto the table. "Shut up, it was just on the forehead. Besides that, why is this class still teaching only the basics of arcane theory even after more than a week?" "Excuse me, Professor, I'm a bit confused," a student said. "Gravity, lightning, metal, lava, sound, matter, and ice all exist naturally in our world. So why doesn't the world produce other types of mana besides earth, water, fire, and wind?" Great question. You see, although many magic scholars have speculated for decades and have produced numerous studies, no one knows for sure why. Some of them believe that producing elemental spices requires a combination of certain conditions. Hence, no mana type correlates with them. For example, in the case of the fire element, fire cannot ignite on its own without an external trigger. Thus, many mages consider the fire element to be the highest form of common magic due to its nature being very close to arcane arts. Oh, forgive me, I digressed a bit. Another theory, originating from ancient mages long ago, recognizes this, which is why this class is so slow with its curriculum. Although wondered what Tessia felt after their conversation. Sylvie sighed. It was just a conversation. As for Princess Tessia, she sat in front of a mirror, looking at herself. She felt shy and embarrassed, remembering when Although kissed her on the forehead. Her face turned red. It was just a forehead kiss, but it's still a start, right? I don't want to get too excited, but what would our children look like? Probably like this, but wait, to have children, although when I would have to. She covered her face in embarrassment. Just one forehead kiss had her excited, thinking about all sorts of things for the future. Over here, two students using red paint were enthusiastically painting on the walls. Although was on patrol and stumbled upon this scene. He squeezed in and remarked, "Looks like fun. Can I join?" Realizing he was a member of the disciplinary committee, the redhead girl tried to flee, leaving her blonde friend behind. The blonde girl protested, "Hey, don't leave me." Realizing escape was futile, she resorted to using a spell to attack. But Althal easily subdued her, causing her to tumble to the ground. Sitting up, she muttered, "What's manners? Why would you get a girl?" Althal replied, asserting, "I stand for equality here. Now would you like to test that?" He raised his weapon, making the girl pale. He teased, "Will you behave and come with me to the management office?" Another guy managed to capture the redhead and found nothing unusual on her back. He grabbed the guy and shook him vigorously. Meanwhile, Sylvie inspected the blonde girl, but found nothing either. Although pointed towards the other girl and informed his team, "It's the same over here." "Darn it. I'll take these two back to you." He addressed his team, confident that he could handle this alone for a while. "No problem. Sylvie, come with me," Althal said. "Dad, I'm hungry and tired," she said. "We're almost done with the night shift. Once it's over, we'll go eat," Althal assured her. He walked away and realized he was approaching Kai's patrol area. He thought it might be wise to circle around. Suddenly, Sylvie felt a strange mana flow. Although immediately hugged her and hid behind a column. From there, he observed a figure with a symbol on his back. Without hesitation, Although followed him cautiously, unaware that someone was tracking him from above. Sylvie was anxious because she feared losing track of the figure. She urged Althal, "Quick, follow the guy in the black cloak." "Patience, Sylvie. If we follow too closely, he might realize. If there are more like him, we need him to lead us to their hideout," Althal explained. But as they observed, Althal's teammate suddenly called out. Althal quickly signaled for silence. The call had alerted the figure, who promptly disappeared. Kai approached Althal with a furrowed brow. "What are you doing here? This is my patrol area. You shouldn't have informed me if you were going to track someone possibly related to Marquois." Althal explained, "Earlier, we caught two students using red paint, vandalizing the walls. I was escorting them to the management office. So no one was patrolling your area." Kai sighed. "He's already escorted them back. He'll probably return soon then." As they spoke, the disciplinary committee's communication method emitted a signal. Both were surprised to see it glowing yellow, indicating that the dagger had been activated. Helplessly, Althal said, "Kai," and Kai patted Althal on the shoulder, saying, "Since this is my patrol area, I'll do my utmost to find the person you were following. You should go back and assist your companion." Seeing Kay's determined expression, Altho smiled and replied while running. He was wearing a black cloak, long black pants, and high boots. Kai raised his hand and smiled, "Got it." But as soon as Altho left, his expression turned dangerous. Was he covering for the others, or was he the mastermind behind this? Altho hurried back and asked his friend, "Are you all right? What happened?" Faye replied, holding his neck. "He got hit in the back of the neck earlier." "What's with the grogginess?" Altho asked. "I only got hit once. It couldn't have knocked me down like that. I'm sure it was a blow from a very powerful enhancement mage," Faye casually replied. Curtis added, "He was ambushed while escorting the two students back to the office. By the time we arrived, they had already fled, but I think we can find them soon since they're all students from the school." Although he expressed doubts to his teammates whether their friend had helped them escape, he insisted, "No, it couldn't have been him. Just an ordinary student couldn't knock me out with a blow like that. Surely it was someone older, or..." Although he continued his sentence, Marcus Faye shook his head in frustration and said, "Yes, you're right. Do you know what the attacker looked like?" Faye shook his head. "I think I managed to graze him with a hit before I passed out, but I didn't get a good look at his face. Earlier, when Kai put his hand on my shoulder, it seemed he had a wound on his arm." Uncertain, he asked Sylvie, who replied, "It seems so." "What were you doing running back from Kay's patrol area? Do you think telling them about the person in the dark coat will help? Especially for Faye." He replied with nothing. "I know that guy seems to be a poor worker, but trust him. He can handle his own affairs." Faye agreed with his friend's opinion. His face seemed miserable. "In fact, I think he is a trustworthy human being." The three argued with the officer. "She's discriminating against race. Huh, she's one of the people who stand up for the safety of the school students. Why is she like that? I don't mean that. Cuff her and let her go again." Although first night patrol had passed, the next morning Professor Gideon's lesson. He thought about the fact that the entire disciplinary committee couldn't even grab the guy who attacked Faye. It's even worse. When Kai couldn't catch that dark coat, I'm still angry at him. My name is too loud. Am I thinking too much? Faye said I had to trust Kai, but the time between them and the wound on his arm made me feel like I was thinking about it. You didn't know that the professor and her friend were focused on you, until the professor raised it. What's going on? Then he startled me. Then he looked down at his table and said, "It's a mess. Oh my God. We thought you were about to create another breakthrough invention." Then he turned away and left. At this moment, her friend touched Althal with her index finger and asked, "What's wrong? You seem a bit unfocused." "It's nothing, just the disciplinary committee's business that's making me a bit tired. After the two classes just now. Do you see? Because of last night's incident, I've been thinking too much, so I need to focus on class now. I can't remember what happened in the first two classes anymore." Then, her green-haired friend accidentally bumped into him and opened her bag, inside which were some glowing orbs. Cheerfully, she said to Althal, "I've got something for you." Althal was surprised and happily exclaimed, "You're the best." After Professor Gideon's class ended, he went to Ms. Gary's advanced class, where she was instructing Althal's teammates to battle another team. The enhancement mage maintained the formation. "Focus on your spells and don't chase after the opponents," she shouted from outside to instruct them. Meanwhile, Althal, still in recovery, sat on a rock and thought. It's unexpected that just because of Marcus's involvement, Lucas got suspended for a few days. It's not fair at all. Sylvie observed, searching but finding nothing. She sadly said, "Mom's not here," although advised her not to be too persistent. "Before long, we'll see her in the gym." Suddenly, he remembered and asked, "Dad, that's right. We don't need to patrol tonight." Although pinched his cheek and said, "Hate patrols, huh?" Suddenly, he saw the professor approaching and sitting down on a rock with a sad face. He proactively asked her, "Is something wrong, ma'am?" She sighed and said, "The school council has banned everyone from going on excursions to most domains where I used to take my class for training, while the Lances are investigating something lost." He continued to ask, "So there won't be any excursions this term?" She looked up at him and said, "There will be, but we can only go to lower-ranked domains compared to where I usually take my students. But don't blame me if that domain is too easy for you." Then the advanced class ended. In the late afternoon, Altho immediately went to the training room with Tessia. After a while, both of them were quite exhausted. Altho said, "Let's take a break here today, thanks." He pointed in the opposite direction and asked Tessia, "Would you like to cool down a bit?" Then, the two of them soaked their feet in a cool, refreshing blue water basin, with their contracted elemental pets lying between them, enjoying the water. He asked her, "How have you been feeling these past few days? Is your wild spirit still showing any signs of resistance? Since the combat training in Professor Gary's class, there hasn't been any issue." Altho nodded and said, "That's good then. Remember to let me or Headmaster Goodsky know if anything's not right, because it'll be a few weeks before he arrives from El Sano." Tessia smiled and stretched. "Yes, I know. If nothing goes wrong with the current situation, you'll be fully attuned in a few weeks. If you're lucky, your mana core might even advance to a higher level." While pondering this, Princess Tessia splashed water on Altho. He asked her, "Why did you do that?" She laughed, "I'm just helping you cool down. We're done with today's elemental training, so now it's lunch break. You should rest." Immediately after, Altho also splashed water on Tessia, apologizing. "Sorry, you're still sweating, so I wanted to help you cool down too." They then playfully splashed water at each other, laughing and joking around. After a while, Tessia lifted her legs out of the water, letting the drops trickle down, making her look even more beautiful and charming. She said, "That's enough for now. I feel cool already." Altho replied, "Me too." Their fingers touched each other, creating a romantic atmosphere. They blushed shyly, but their moment was interrupted by Headmaster Goodsky, who noticed how happy they seemed together. They awkwardly turned back to greet Headmaster Goodsky, noticing scratches on her face. Tessia hurriedly ran back to the headmaster, asking, "What happened, master? Are you okay?" "Oh, it's nothing, dear. I just wanted to stretch these old bones of mine a bit, so I stopped by the Mage Guild for a while," she replied. Altho interjected, "But, Grandma, I thought you were in a council meeting. Once that's done, shouldn't you be allowed to unwind a bit?" Tessia anxiously advised her not to strain herself unnecessarily to end up injured like this. The headmaster chuckled gently, placing her hand on Tessia's shoulder and reassured her, "Next time, I'll heed your advice, dear." She glanced towards Altho. "Looks like your next class is about to start, right? Hopefully, you won't be bothered if we use your training room tonight. Will that be all right?" Altho cheerfully replied, "Of course, Grandma. Tessia and I have finished our joint elemental training today, so feel free and comfortable." The two youngsters waved goodbye to each other, thanking Tessia. "See you tomorrow." Altho reminded Tessia not to overexert herself, then stepped out towards the corridor. Glancing back at Headmaster Goodsky, he was sure she was hiding something, but it wasn't something he could pry into casually. He then headed towards his next classroom to continue his lessons. In class, he yawned and slumped down onto the desk, clearly exhausted. His four-eyed friend noticed and asked, "Since we left the dorm until now, you've been yawning like this. How late did you come back from patrol yesterday?" "I'm not sure, but by the time I got back to the dorm, I fell asleep." Altho replied, "I know, and last night I also returned quite late because of club activities." The friend added. Altho looked suspiciously at his friend. "Which club did you join this time?" Excitedly, the friend answered, "It's the Meditation Beat Research Club. There are unexpectedly many girls there." Altho jokingly retorted, "Were you lacking affection, or something? Why so eager?" Angrily, the friend replied, "Just be quiet. You're the strange one here. We're at an age to explore ourselves and build loving relationships, you know." He was a bit too excited, and his voice carried enough to be heard by the professor below. Clearing his throat, the professor expressed his interest in hearing more about the pink love life, but politely asked to continue the lesson. At that moment, the whole class turned to look at Altho and burst into laughter. He felt so embarrassed that he wished he could find a hole to hide in. Fortunately, with the professor's presence, the classmates stopped laughing and became serious again. The professor knew that many of the students had heard about what had happened to their classmate a few days ago. Because of that tragic event, he felt it was crucial to educate them about the risks of using powerful magic recklessly, which many took for granted. Now, all the mages, along with the most skilled medical staff, are still collaborating to find out the cause of your classmate's death. Surely you all know he used a powerful magic that overwhelmed his body beyond control. You must all understand the risks involved when you push your magical cores to their limits. It's similar to overstraining muscles in your body, which can lead to injury, permanent damage, and even death. A female student raised her hand and asked, "But professor, I heard that after resisting Marquois, he's still alive, right? Isn't it that, with some therapeutic elixirs, he could continue living?" The professor nodded in response. In most cases, that's true. However, there are exceptions. I'm saying this as a general warning and to highlight the dangers, not specifically about Marquardt's case. The methods used to forcibly restore mana from external sources often come with a series of side effects. One of them is the potential leakage of mana energy, he continued. Although, witnessing the professor's words, still couldn't explain the erratic behavior and the mana leakage signs tattooed along his classmate's spine. After finishing that class, Altho regained his composure to stand up. "I wish everyone a good afternoon," he addressed the class. "Since none of us have successfully achieved what I illustrated a few days ago, I'll start today's lesson with some hints for you. Leicester, come down here," he suddenly called out. Leicester was surprised and pointed at himself. "Me?" he asked. Altho scratched his head and said, "Why did the professor choose me?" Now imagine Leicester as a powerful adversary. Altho tore a piece of paper in his hand and continued, "I'm an enhancement mage, but fear his intimidating appearance. So I chose to attack with a long-range incantation." He held up the torn paper and explained, "This is the incantation I prepared, a common one you're all familiar with." Then, he blew on the paper ball in his hand, dropping it to the ground. "This time, I'll prepare an incantation to show you." He inserted the paper into a tube and blew, instantly hitting Leicester in the forehead, freezing him like stone. Perhaps this hint is quite clear for enhancement mages, right? For the spellcasters deeply absorbed in lecturing for a while, as evening approached, the class also came to an end. In a large and luxurious room, Lance Byrons and a Lance with shoulder-length hair were present. She said, "I thought my next task would be to assist Lance at El Sano. Do you know why Uncave called us here? This case must be related to what I discovered in a Dumayon on the outskirts of Bitcoin." She was surprised by what he had found. While they were conversing, footsteps descended the stairs. They looked in that direction, seeing a girl with long hair sitting down and saying, "Since only the three of us are here, I'll skip the formalities and get straight to the point. The reason I and the council decided to withdraw her from the task at El Sano with Aaliyah is because recently we discovered signs of spellcasters not coming from Dikathen and some of the deepest levels of certain dun aeons." Lance with short hair stood up in surprise and said, "What? As far as I understand, we've hardly detected the existence of any new territories." "What do you mean?" Byrons responded, "Just because we recently discovered them doesn't mean they didn't exist before. The evidence has been confirmed, hasn't it?" Lance with long hair nodded. "The fabric I found is composed of mana from mystical beasts that we've never encountered or belong to Dikiden." The short-haired girl didn't believe what she heard. Byron said, "I also sense the amount of mana absorbed in that fabric. Has the council discovered anything else from it?" "It was torn, so any magic or spells on it would have been ineffective," the girl replied. "However, Aaliyah," she continued, "we called you here for another issue." "What is it?" Aaliyah opened the map in her hands and said, "Recently, adventurers have been active in various locations within Tuspress and have discovered the appearance of the Titanic monsters." "The Titanic monsters? They're not rare mana creatures. What's unusual about their appearance?" Byron spread the map on the table. At first, there wasn't much. But when linking their appearance and cross-referencing behavior studies of mana monsters, it seems their tunneling trajectories have changed significantly, Aaliyah said. "While it's likely just an expansion of their territory, we can't ignore the recent aggressive behavior of these mana monsters, possibly linked to Aaliyah being deep in Dunaon," Byron said, leading the investigation there. Aaliyah, relying on her magical senses, said, "I can survey a much larger area than you. To maintain speed, I'll have to act alone." Byron's committed to focusing on deeper areas, but voiced concern. "I worry the Titanic monsters are continuing to dig deeper into domains, closer to Sapin." Another person suggested, "We could wait for Micah to complete her task, and then the two of us could act together." But the danger is becoming more severe by the day. Aaliyah resolved to begin the investigation immediately. "If we delay, the risks facing adventurers and students out there will only increase." The next morning, Altho was still groggy when suddenly he saw his red-haired teammate glide past and then collapse to the ground, startling Altho awake. "Hey dude, if you're going to crash, better into the ice than into the wall." "Huh, princess." Serlin and Altho stood there puzzled, unsure if they were on the same team or not. Before they could react, they were interrupted by Kai, who urged them to focus. The two kept charging at each other and exchanging blows continuously. Altho observed their use of dark gravity magic, still not fully understanding its application. They continued their fight, not escalating this time. "Nice move there, Prince. I like that. Round 5. Let's go." As they prepared to continue, they were restrained by Kai's black threads. Though not wanting to interrupt, Claire's orders prevailed. Altho wondered why he couldn't sense any elemental magic activity. How is he controlling those threads? The two were thwarted in their duel, forced into conversation. "I was just about to counterattack." Altho exclaimed. Yeah, I guess," replied the other. Claire arrived to find everyone assembled and ready. "Unlike these two, I actually want to go to class. As you all know, Altho and I will be leaving the academy to venture into the monster forest with our class for a few weeks. We'll rearrange the weekly schedule and staffing to support their temporary absence. Does anyone volunteer for extra patrol duty?" Kai stepped forward to take additional shifts. "Well, I don't have anyone or anything else to do," he shrugged. "Thanks, Kai." Altho nodded gratefully. "And I don't have anyone either, so count me in," Faye added reluctantly. While Faye tried to evade, Kai used his threads to pull him up, surprising Faye. "What in the world?" Kai sat nearby, pleased with himself. "I didn't think you'd volunteer," Faye mumbled. "I didn't plan to, but I can't really change it now," he resigned. Kai grinned at Faye. "I still haven't had a patrol with you yet, so let's give it a shot. You owe me food after your shift, though." Claire, satisfied with the turnout for patrol, concluded the meeting there. As they descended the stairs, Faye patted Altho on the shoulder. "You're quite knowledgeable, but be careful out there. If you need advice, I'm happy to share my experiences from our trips to the monster forest. You might not know, but Altho is actually a Class A adventurer." Princess Serlin, passing by, added, "I've seen him get chewed on by trees for not having food ready." This remark sparked a heated argument between the two. Taking advantage of the moment, Altho sidestepped to talk to Claire. "Do you know what type of magic Kai was using earlier? I couldn't sense the elemental attribute of those incantations." "He keeps that pretty close to the chest," Claire replied. "All I know is that those metal threads are quite unique." Altho glanced at Kai and pondered. Perhaps they conceal his true abilities. Seeing Altho looking at him, Kai smirked and asked, "Are you interested in me?" Altho didn't evade the question, replying straightforwardly, "Yes, a bit. I'd like to know how you control those metal threads." Kai chuckled slyly. "Sure, maybe I'll reveal it, but then I might have to kill you." Their conversation was interrupted by Claire, who pushed them apart. "That's enough, you two. Let's get to class. Altho, you have an appointment with your four-eyed friend in the training room to discuss Kai's thread control." Altho recounted to his friend how he was curious about Kai's abilities, but his friend, somewhat irritated, said, "I used to be interested in that too, but not so much in magic anymore. It doesn't really go anywhere." This prompted Altho to tease his friend. "Are you studying magic just to impress girls?" His friend retorted with slight annoyance. "Not exactly, but maybe a little." Altho tossed his friend a sword, saying, "Well, even as a mage, it's good to know some basics of close combat. You know, girls love it." Once again, Altho teased him. His friend, now a bit angry, wielded the sword and lunged towards Altho, saying, "Enough with your teasing. What's your problem?" Altho deftly parried several strikes, feeling quite comfortable. "I've been learning swordsmanship since I was young. It's actually not bad. I find it hard to believe you dodge so easily," his friend remarked. Altho observed his friend's swift and precise sword movements, steady footwork, and balance. With a bit more practice, he could become quite a formidable swordsman, especially combined with his unique metal magic. While contemplating this, Altho adeptly avoided his friend's strikes and managed to subdue him. His friend fell to the ground with a painful thud. Approaching him, Altho said calmly, "You lost your cool there." He swung his sword slightly wide. His friend looked up defiantly, saying, "Who wouldn't be mad?" Altho reached out to help his friend up, but from this angle, He froze upon sensing a looming figure behind him, a tall, powerful man. The sight made Althal clutch his head in pain. What's happening? Why am I feeling like this? Seeing his distress, Aldo sat down anxiously and asked if his friend was okay. Are you sure you're all right? His friend brushed off his concern, saying, I'm fine, really. Althal was bewildered. What just happened? His friend stood up, slightly embarrassed. Just a headache from hitting my head earlier. I'll go wash up. It's probably nothing serious. With a cheerful demeanor returning to his face, his friend waved goodbye. See you at the dorms later, all right? Althal nodded in agreement. Yeah, see you. The following weeks passed by in the same balanced rhythm of peaceful days, bordering on boredom even during midterm exams. Despite my increasing proficiency in magic skills, thanks to Tobas and the professor's guidance, I couldn't muster much interest in all my classes. Yet, I never forgot my true purpose for joining this academy. Because of that, those small moments in everyday life, with the people who were slowly becoming dear to me, became the things I cherished the most. Every morning, Althal and his friend walked down the path together, chatting. Despite a few more classmates joining the class, I started to notice that my friend wasn't paying attention to what I was saying. I waved my hand in front of his face and asked, Hey, are you there? He startled and asked, Oh, what did you say? I've noticed you've been a bit down these past few days. Is everything all right? Is there something bothering you? He shook his head and said, No, everything's fine. I'm just a bit worried about the upcoming exam tomorrow. You're going on an expedition into the monster forest with Professor Gary's class tomorrow, right? Yeah, that's right. Today, don't push yourself too hard during training with Princess Tessia. Okay. Well, see you later. Since the sword duel in Althal's training room, his attitude has been completely different from usual. I don't know what happened to him. Sylvie also noticed that he seemed upset. You noticed too? He seems different lately. Yeah, isn't it just me? Let's put aside our doubts for now. Althal arrived at the training room with Princess Tessia. Lately, the synchronization between the monster's will and your mana core seems more stable, she said, stretching. Does that mean the mana monsters we're about to face won't stand a chance against me? Althal teased, tapping his forehead, causing her pain. Don't get cocky just because of the synchronization process. You might not be as strong as you think you are. She angrily retorted, You dive headfirst into the monster forest, while sealing off your two strongest elements. Look over there. The difference is that I can unseal anytime I want, but you can't. I know, but you don't have to treat me like a child, sis. I'm just a year younger than you. Remember? Althal pulled his hand holding a towel over his head and said, Of course I remember. I remember when I was afraid, and you told me that monsters would appear if I left the tent. Because they know you're just a kid, you should stay in the tent for safety. He recalled his childhood embarrassment, and then angrily pinned it down. The good times didn't last long. Just as things were romantic and enjoyable, Tessia's grandfather arrived. I also want you two to bond more, he said unexpectedly. What did you just say? Tessia asked in surprise, sitting up from Althal's lap immediately. Oh, Grandpa Althal, what are you doing here in Exirus? Aldo asked. Oh, I just sneaked out for a bit to visit my beloved granddaughter. Seems like she's grown up, he chuckled. Tessia grabbed his long beard in frustration and said loudly, Grandpa, please don't make everything more awkward. Ouch, ouch, my dear. He winced as his granddaughter held onto his beard tightly. Then he turned to Althal and said, I'm a bit worried about tomorrow's tomb exploration expedition. Actually, I wanted the headmistress to keep an eye on the kid in case there are any issues with her core, but she's busy. Anyway, I hope you can be with her before the field trip tomorrow. Usually, there shouldn't be any problems. Althal reassured him, but Tessia promised her family she'd visit them tonight to spend time with them before the trip. Grandpa nodded approvingly. Perfect. Then, take her along. Tessia looked surprised. Why? Althal raised his hand in an X shape and shook his head. No way I'm going against your grandpa's plan. I can imagine how your family would react if you brought Tessia home. I'm not bringing her, Althal said firmly, but after a while, unbelievably, he did bring Tessia along to his family. Excitedly, his mother opened the door. It's time. Tessia's here. They glanced at the gifts placed at the bottom of the stairs and said, What's the big deal? Mom, are you planning to keep them outside forever? Come on in, I'm almost done preparing dinner. Last time, Hellenson seemed uncomfortable meeting Tessia, but this time she seems friendlier. She pulled Tessia into the house and said, "Come in. I want to show you how well I can use this bow. Hellenson has been teaching me since the Two in Horns group came to visit. Come on, quick." Everyone in Altho's family was happy to have her visiting. See how warmly they treated her. Altho couldn't help but smile. They all gathered happily together that evening. Meanwhile, Ms. Lance LX was searching for clues alone in a dark dungeon. She was tirelessly making efforts to track them down. But the trail had once again gone cold. At this moment, she remembered the words of Lunsevai and affirmed that she was right. No way could those numerous bloodworms be moving as usual. According to the tunnel network, they almost all converged in this area, leading deep down and to the east, where there were large mountains. If that was the case, it seemed she had discovered something. She continued running forward, and then stopped because there was a deep chasm below. Looking down, she saw two long things, and was sure they were snake monsters. But why did they have horns? And about the color too. Until now, reports only recorded them as gray with blue flames on their backs. It was ridiculous for a creature that didn't even care about its offspring to be guarding a tunnel like this. Lan's communication device lit up. She picked it up and said, "Lunsevai, I have tracked down an unusual husk snake monster guarding a tunnel, emitting a large amount of mana." He said, "Do you think that's the source? I trust your judgment based on its color compared to the mana monsters I've seen before. Then it might be it. Requesting reinforcements. I have 50 combat mages preparing to be teleported to the nearest gate. Maintain your position and await further instructions." "Yes, sir." On a full moon night, brightening the entire sky, the meal ended and the servants were cleaning up. Uncle Vincent seemed to have had too much to drink and was being helped to his room by his wife, and although his daughter, sulking, said, "If every time I come home, Dad is drunk like this, I'd rather stay at school." Despite her words, she still prepared blankets and pillows for her father to rest. "No, my selfish bear," her mother said, helping her father sit in a chair. "If you don't come home, your dad will really cry. He already regrets sending you to the academy. Do you know how embarrassed I was when Dad told those stories in front of the student council president?" she said. "Speaking of which, where is he?" Although stretched and said, "Tessia wanted to get some fresh air, so my mother went with her to keep her from getting lost." "Oh, I see." Returning to the living room, Although saw his father holding his younger sibling in his arms. "Dad, are you taking Ellie to her room?" he asked. Dad handed the child over to him and said, "Okay, let the big brother handle it." He patted his son's head and said, "Every day, the little one asks when you will come home. Make sure to tell her that you're leaving in the morning, so she doesn't stay up late again." Mother and Tessia sat outside at the table, chatting. "Thank you for coming," said Mother. "I know you might not be too comfortable." "Not at all, am," Tessie replied. "I'm actually very happy. I see that Lilia and Uncle are also very happy." "You mean embarrassed?" Mother laughed. "Perhaps a bit of that too," Tessie admitted. Noticing Mother's concern, she asked, "Are you worried about tomorrow, when Altho enters the dungeon?" "Of course. But he's become very strong, hasn't he?" "No matter how strong Altho is, even stronger than all his teammates combined, I still worry. Even the lowest level dungeons are very dangerous and unpredictable." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you before the trip." "It's okay, ma'am. Don't worry. Just like how he protects me, I will protect him if anything happens." "It's good to hear you say that, but I hope you won't have to," Mother said gently. Tessie was surprised. Mother smiled and explained, "You are a precious gem to your parents too. If anything happens to you, they would be devastated. You should prioritize your own safety. I will trust my son." Mother rubbed her arms, saying, "I'm starting to get a bit cold. Would you like to go inside? I want to stay out here a bit longer. Thank you for the walk." "Of course," Mother replied, heading back inside. After putting his sister to bed, she slowly opened her eyes. "Oh, you're awake?" he asked. Rubbing her eyes, she said, "What time is it?" "It's still night." "When are you leaving?" "Tomorrow morning." "Can't you stay a bit longer?" she asked. "Unfortunately, no. But after that, I'll be home for a whole week." "All right then, tell me a story." "I don't know. I have to leave early tomorrow." Seeing her reluctance, he gave in. "All right. What do you want to hear?" "You didn't finish the story about how you became a professor." "Wait, Where did I leave off? You remember? He asked eagerly. Yes, a professor's spell, once activated, cannot be stopped. So I stepped in and pulled Serlin out because she wasn't defending herself. Serlin? You mean Serlin, the Princess of Sapin? She asked. Yes, is there a problem? He replied. You saved another princess? She asked, incredulous. Why do you make it sound like I'm going around saving princesses? And after saving her, you asked the professor to fight you instead of her. To impress her? She teased. Frowning, he pinched her nose. No, it's not like that. Ouch, you're hurting me. Let go, she protested. Although let go, crossed his arms and continued the story. In short, after defeating that professor, the headmaster Goodski of the academy contacted me and asked if I wanted to be a professor. She covered her mouth and asked, So did you agree? Of course not. Do you think your brother is that simple? I refused until I got the right to use the restricted library, which only a few professors have access to. Is that all? She asked. No, besides that, I also got a personal training room covered with mana crystals. Thanks to that, other professors and disciplinary committee members became gentler with me, and I had more time to train. So are you a good professor? She asked. Of course. My classes even attract students from other classes, he said proudly. Really? I can't believe it, she said. You little brat, he said, ruffling her hair. By the way, did you know that Elisa and Tessia also use the training room with me? Recently, Mr. Gideon has made progress in improving Tobias. Tobias? Who's that? She asked. But it was already late, and the two siblings fell asleep without noticing. The next day started. Good morning, my dear. Have you seen Aldo? Asked Mom. I checked his room, but he wasn't there. Dad stretched and said, Maybe he's having breakfast. I wonder where he went so early. They pondered. Then they went to Ellie's room to wake her up. When they opened the door, they saw Aldo there, sleeping next to his sister. They smiled and left quietly. In a cold, snow-covered place, Professor Gary called out loudly, Everyone, gather in your teams. Aldo turned to Sylvie and said, We should spend our time in there hunting a bit. Are you sure, Dad? Of course. This is just a low-level dungeon, and Professor Gary is with us. Hearing this, Sylvie jumped down, ready to hunt. She turned back to remind her dad, If anything goes wrong, just call me. Aldo looked over at Lucas and thought, I can't believe Professor Gary put me in the same team as him. As usual, Lucas boasted, Hey, I've been here countless times until it became too easy. After all, I'm an A-rank adventurer. The surrounding students whispered in awe, Wow, so cool. He really is the son of the Wykes family. Although casually said, I heard from an adventurer friend that your certification was confiscated. Hearing that, Lucas angrily approached and grabbed Aldo's shoulder. You're just jealous of my fame, aren't you? Why would I be? I'm just saying what I heard. Aldo replied nonchalantly. Lucas was about to use his magic to attack Aldo, but someone came and pushed them apart. Enough. We still have to choose a team leader before we go in, the person said. Lucas asked, What do you mean by choosing a team leader? Of course it's me. Who else could it be? But to his dismay, his teammates all raised their hands to vote for Tessia as the team leader. She was surprised and asked, Me? Why not choose Aldo? One of the teammates explained, You have experience leading as the student council president, and you're a mid-level mage who can keep an eye on everyone. Another friend cheerfully added, If she's the leader, we can name our group the Queen and the Knights. Not being chosen as the leader, Lucas was furious and called them all idiots. Professor Gary asked, Is everyone ready? You all know your teammates' capabilities, so use the basic formations and team strategies we've learned. Let's go. The professor led the way into the dungeon. Tessia instructed, Keep moving and maintain the formation. Remember to protect yourself with mana at all times. After a while, one of the students said, Why is it suddenly so cold? Didn't you hear Professor Gary? You need to warm your body up, even without using mana, she replied. Although wasn't much affected by the cold, thanks to Sylvie's Dryan aura. Tessia commented, I know this is a dungeon, but it's really beautiful. Professor Gary explained, Perhaps you haven't heard in class. This is a D-level dungeon called the Widow's Tomb. We will only stay on the first 2 floors, so the only mana beasts we need to watch out for are snarlers. After hearing the name of the creature, everyone started discussing. I read about snarlers before coming here. They aren't very strong, but they are tough to kill individually because their fur is incredibly thick. Not to mention, they are extremely ugly. It's disgusting to get close to them. Curtis said to Claire, "I've heard it's pretty easy to spot some groups even on the first floor. I wonder if any expedition teams have been here before." She replied, "Professor Gary once said she hired an adventurer team to limit the number of people entering this dungeon a few weeks before we came here." Exactly, it's strange we haven't encountered any group at all. We should have passed by the Snarler's den by now. Where are they? He wondered. The professor turned back and advised her students, "Everyone, stay alert. Just because we don't see any monsters doesn't mean we can let our guard down." Lucas felt frustrated. What a waste of time being here, when there's not a single monster around, he complained. Another student asked, "What will happen if there are no monsters on the first or second floor? Will we go deeper?" "Of course not. If we don't find any monsters on the first or second floor, we'll report back to the adventurer team," the professor replied. Curtis suggested, "Maybe we can hunt some mana beasts outside the dungeon." Distracted by the conversation, he didn't notice that the professor had suddenly stopped, causing him to bump into her back. "Back off," the professor said. Curtis, confused, asked, "What?" The professor turned around and shouted, "Back off immediately." The students broke into a cold sweat, panicking, although and some others rushed forward. "Didn't you hear what the professor said? Hurry up!" The professor drew her sword to fend off the mana beasts. These snarlers weren't any stronger than usual, but they shouldn't be gathering in packs like this. After defeating them, she turned back to her students. Snarlers aren't hard to deal with, but their behavior is concerning. Prioritizing everyone's safety, we'll end this excursion now. Let's head back. Suddenly, a streak of fire passed by the professor, coming from Lucas. He said, "Safety? Don't tell me you brought us here just to turn back now that the monsters finally showed up. It's to liven things up, right?" The students began to murmur among themselves. "They're pretty easy to kill, aren't they? It might not be too bad. After all, this is just a D-level dungeon." Curtis spoke up to the professor. "I think we can still try and practice here." All those stood nearby, understanding why Professor Gary hesitated, especially given the Lance's research on the dungeon. Seeing the students' eagerness to stay and explore, the professor closed her eyes, contemplating. Based on the Lance's findings in the monster's lair, this might be the students' only chance to gain valuable dungeon exploration experience. Moreover, the Snarlers were only E-level monsters. With their presence, everything should be fine. After her thoughts, she addressed the students. "All right then, form groups and explore different areas of the dungeon. We do not hope for any internal conflicts here," she instructed. "Yes, Professor," the students replied in unison, excitedly moving forward. She pulled Lucas aside and warned, "If you dare repeat your earlier behavior, prepare for the consequences." As team leader, Tessia assigned roles, although I want you to be the vanguard since you excel in close combat. Clive and Roland, you two will be on either side of Aldo. Keep an eye out for him, even if no monsters attack you. Lucas, you'll be in the middle. We will form a diamond formation as we practiced." Lucas arrogantly brushed past Tessia. All right, don't make a big deal out of it, Princess. This is just a stupid trip." Hearing this, Clive, angry, was about to give Lucas a piece of his mind, but Aldo stopped him. "Let it go. We have bigger things to worry about," he said, pointing towards the monsters. Aldo noticed a yellow object in his hand, curious about what it was. Smiling, he exerted force, producing an eye-catching green light. Suddenly, a monster lunged at him, catching him by surprise. Aldo quickly dodged and slashed it, then looked towards Clive. "Thanks." "No problem," Clive replied. The team was ready to conquer the monsters with a strategic formation. They charged forward together, each using their unique skills to defeat the monsters. The professors stood outside, observing everyone performing exceptionally well thanks to their classroom training. However, they were not accustomed to prolonged battles, and the number of Snarlers wasn't decreasing. Worried that the situation might become complicated, she waved her hand and called out loudly, "Teams, stick with your leaders. We're heading back." Hearing the professor's command, everyone turned back. However, due to running a bit slower, one student, Loong, was grabbed by a monster. Tessia turned back, calling Aldo to join her, but he had already rushed to save his teammate. Charging forward, he thought, "Damn it, I need to attack harder to blow them away. If not, they'll keep coming. I've never tried this without Tobias." Just hope it works as I think. He drew his sword and instructed, hold on to something tight. Hearing this, the student clung desperately to the ground. Although mustered all his strength to drive away the monsters and saved his friend, he extended his hand to pull them up, and just as they were about to run, they heard a loud noise. Although winced, don't be so dramatic. The professor, shocked, exclaimed, no way, the Snarler King. What is it doing here? It shouldn't be on this final level. Immediately, she ripped the necklace from her neck and rushed forward to attack the monstrous creatures. Shouting, she commanded, clear a path for retreat now. I'll handle this. Although understood, we need to get everyone across the chasm and seal it off. He scanned around, Diophin, right? Come with me. Seeing this, all those teammates shouted, we'll go with you. They all charged forward together. Although instructed Diophin, I need you to use your strength to break through the chasm. I'll protect you. Terrified, she stammered, okay, but I need some time. A loud call from behind, although, made her more scared as a monster lunged at her. Fortunately, although managed to kill the creature in time, realizing that although could protect her, she focused on breaking through the chasm, despite her fear. Everyone was putting their all into defeating the monsters. The girl turned back and informed although that she had finished. He responded, now we need to clear this mess. He clenched his fists and delivered a powerful punch. Damn it. We need to break through in one go. Otherwise, this won't end. Suddenly, everyone shouted loudly. Although startled, why is there smoke? It turns out that Lucas had used fire to destroy the monsters. He said, there are too many evil things here. They are blocking our way. Although recognizing imminent death, they are blocking the other passages, aren't they? Then he shouted loudly, no more fire. Put it out immediately if possible. We are running out of oxygen to breathe. We need an explosion to break through this wall in one go. Be careful, it's useless if we don't breathe fully. Suddenly, Sylvia asked her father, what's going on? We're stuck in the dungeon. Come here as soon as possible to notice what's going on outside. Wait, Dad, I'll be right there if you help. Suddenly, he remembered Kotick and his covenant beast, who immediately helped. Although calling Kotick over immediately, Kotick heard and ran back. Do you have the willpower to clean up that mess? No, but although I don't have enough mana without Grande here. Turn around and don't ask any more. Focus on your first phase and create a powerful explosion to clean up that mess. Understand? And Delphin, go help the others to detain the monsters. You observe around and remove the wrist rope. Then transfer the mana to Kotick. Transfer the mana that has been researched for many years, but it fails. Even a dominant element is like another wizard's body source. They still have only that element, but because I have the ability to control all 4 elements, I can simulate, copy, and control the ratio of each element separately. I'm not yet proficient and only tried a few times, but today I was careless. I was too confident and arrogant when I entered the dungeon. I didn't calculate what uncertainty could happen. I thought I had enough capacity to handle that and protect everyone whenever something happened. The power I got at this age, compared to my previous life, has made me more absurd. I need to reach the white stage, but the problem is time and effort. I can't be careless and arrogant like that. Although, I don't know what you're doing, but I can enter my first stage, and then although looks at his friend. The mana from his willpower of the beast is resisting him. His friend shouts loudly, and then uses a very strong force to break the wall. Although, now let everyone out of here. Although saw the professor still fiercely battling the monster lord. Even the unusually strong magical glass created from the relationship between her 2 elements couldn't withstand it, and she was pushed back. All right, everyone, let's go, Although said, suddenly realizing Tessia was missing. Seeing her standing in pain, Altho quickly ran to support her. She trembled and said, Altho, my mana core. Altho held her and reassured. All right, we're about to get out of here. He helped her out of the dungeon, feeling the situation was too dangerous. Why are there 2 monsters in the dungeon? And Snarler is only at level B. They should have been easily defeated by Professor Gary, who is already an A-rank explorer, he thought. Something fell off. Altho turned towards the professor and saw the monster had evolved into a more terrifying form. The professor shouted, Everyone, run quickly. The students were petrified. She continuously attacked the monster, but it seemed unaffected while she accumulated wounds. This place is a pigsty. Altho felt uneasy. Professor Gary can't distract it for long, he thought. His teammates from the disciplinary committee urged, Althal, let's go quickly. We need to leave immediately. However, Althal asked them to help Tessia out of there, but he stayed behind. Curtis grabbed his hand in concern. I know you're a dual-element mage, but don't act foolishly. We should leave this monster to Professor Gary. But when the mana sources radiated from Althal's body, Curtis released his hand in surprise, saying, I didn't see wrong, did I? Is that really fire? Yes, it's fire. Althal confirmed. The professor knew that mana beasts would slaughter each other, but never imagined they could evolve to this extent. It doesn't make any sense, she thought. Althal charged towards the monster and shouted confidently. The professor was shocked. Is that fire? Why would you? I told everyone to leave immediately, the professor said, ignoring Althal's words. He replied, I don't think it will attack your teammates. I realize that none of your attacks could harm it. Oh, are you mocking me? The professor asked. I just want to try something. Althal replied. All right, but have the others left? She asked, glancing towards where Lucas was watching them, but soon left as well. They've all gone, Althal answered. All right, this thing won't follow us out of the dungeon. We just need to weaken it and escape. Can you do that? Althal said, hold it back for 10 seconds. Then the professor and Althal joined forces to attack the monster. The professor realized that Althal was a dual-element mage. They both attacked fiercely, and Althal shouted, Move! Seeing the opportunity to leave, the professor grabbed Althal and ran. However, it seemed Althal's sword was stuck in the monster. He walked out of the dungeon sadly, but when he turned around, he saw the monster following him and stabbing his leg, making him cry out in pain. The professor heard and immediately turned back, calling out to Althal and intending to pull him out of this terrifying place. Realizing something was wrong, Althal shouted, Back away now! Then he fell into a deep chasm. The professor helplessly called out in vain, No, Althal! He fell into the abyss, exhausted and nearly fainted, but he managed to cling on to avoid falling further. Damn it, he thought, there's no other way but to survive. After falling, even with mana restoration, he had little mana left, but it might be enough for now. He used all his remaining mana to move to a safer place. He survived, but his strength was greatly diminished, and his body was severely injured. Trying to sit up, he saw his beloved sword in front of him. First, he needed to enhance his senses and regenerative abilities. Sylvie's beast nature was very effective and had helped him a lot. He looked at the hole and thought, even at full strength, I would have trouble climbing out of this hole, let alone now. Looking around, he heard the sound of running water. He chose to move closer and step over, only to be shocked by what he saw. Numerous people had died here. What terrifying event had taken place? Hearing a noise, Althal immediately went on the defensive and asked, Who's there? He heard a weak and trembling voice call out, Please help me. Wait, can you try to speak again? He asked. I'm here, the voice said, making him drop his sword in surprise. Alex? Isn't this Lance Alex, the white mage I met and talked to at Sagiris Academy? This can't be real, he thought, astonished. Althal quickly approached Lance Alex. Due to her severe eye injury, she couldn't see who was in front of her. Who is it? Who are you? She asked. Althal used his abilities to help heal her a bit and said, Wait a moment. Curious, Lance Alex asked, Do you know me? Have we met before? To satisfy her curiosity, Althal replied, I'm Matt. We encountered each other at Sagiris Academy. You even said I was the same age as your younger brother. Do you remember? Oh, right, the spy boy in Byron's. Why are you near? She asked. Fearing that talking more would worsen her injuries, Althal stopped her, saying, Don't talk anymore, that's enough. You know my condition is incurable. I'm sorry, she said. Sorry for what? I feel much better thanks to you, he replied. Althal helplessly asked, What can I do now? I don't understand why this is happening. Why? Why are you in this state? Do you mean why am I still alive? He kept me alive this long for revenge, for harming him, she explained. She handed something to Althal, and he picked it up. This, even my shattered mana core, I should show you everything. Let your mana permeate my body. Althal touched her head and saw a terrifying monster before him. As everyone rushed to attack it, nothing worked, and they even had to die. The monster smugly gave her two choices. You can choose to fight and die, or kill all your teammates here and survive, he said. Do you think your efforts can change the situation? No matter what, there will be war, and I have prepared a quick death for you along with them. It's a pity you won't need these anymore. I've read that if one of your senses is destroyed, the others become more acute, he said as he approached, using his sharp claw to poke her eye. Red immediately appeared along with cries of Alex. No, please stop. How does it feel? Can you hear those desperate cries more clearly now? He taunted. Seeing such a horrifying scene, Altho felt nauseous. She trembled and said, Not everyone gets to witness such ghastly sights, especially a young boy like you. Not everyone needs to go through all the turmoil here. At least now, I can know clearly what everyone went through. Thank you for showing me that. In pain, she broke down and cried. I don't want to die. Altho, with tears in his eyes, moved closer to hold her. I'm very scared, she said. Altho comforted her. Don't worry, I'm here with you. Due to her severe injuries, she eventually passed away. Altho whispered to himself that Alexa's death was not in vain. From her memories, he discovered that there was not just one dark spirit. As he wondered how many there could be, they seemed to be hunting for something. Just like the first demon he encountered in Sylvie's cave. Whether this demon wanted the entire Sylvie or Dickinson, it didn't make any difference. As an elemental warrior or not, he had no other choice. If a war was truly about to break out as the demon had said, he couldn't afford to remain complacent. To protect the people he loved and cherished in this world, he needed to become even stronger. Looking at the string on his hand, he clenched it tightly. He stood up, walked towards Lance Alex, and used his magic to freeze her. He then placed a flower on her, saying, You won't be alone anymore. I'll make sure they go to hell with you, along with everyone else here. Thank you for waiting. Sylvie noticed the sadness on his face and called out, Father, although hugged Sylvie and said, I'm okay. Let's get out of here. There's nothing left to do. Sylvie took him away from that place. His clothes were tattered, and his body was covered in wounds. As he walked towards a door, he was stopped. What is a child doing outside at this late hour? Can you prove your identity? Altho replied, Cyrus Academy. I just returned from an expedition with my class to the widow's tomb. The widow's tomb, the place where that unusual incident occurred. Hearing this, the man immediately said, Inform Cyrus Academy and the Adventurers Guild right away. Yes, the Adventurers Guild is gathering personnel to search for and rescue you, kid. Wait a moment. Let me find someone to treat your wounds. Altho grabbed the man's hand and said, I just want to go home, sir. I will report to Cyrus Academy in the morning. All right, kid, the man replied.